sometimes can be a bit spotty. So if I completely cut out, please let me know. All right. So just a little bit about the ARC Alliance, as a whole. The ARC Alliance started out as a grassroots movement in 1951. Several parents came together and agreed that they wanted more for their children with disabilities. They didn't want to see their children institutionalized. They wanted to see their children in the community just like everybody else, and to have the same rights and choices just like anybody else. And the organization grew from there. So the ARC Alliance's mission is to support individuals and families with developmental and intellectual disabilities by providing exceptional personal services, support and training, inspiring hope, potential, and well-being, ensuring valued life experiences and treatment expected by all people. So within the ARC Alliance, there are several departments. So early intervention is service for children birth through age 3 and their families. And it includes, but it is not limited to, behavioral services, social work, and various therapies like physical, occupational, and speech therapy. The guardianship or community services, which is guardianship, when someone with a disability is not able to make decisions on their own. We have staff that can act as the person's legal guardian. And within that same department, there is also rep payee-ship. So when somebody needs help managing their finances, more specifically like their SSD and SSI funds. The foundation is community outreach and grant writing and fundraising. And advocacy services is another name for supports coordination. That's the department that I work for, and I'm going to be diving mostly into more information about supports coordination since we are talking about, school age kiddos. So there are a lot of acronyms, just like in every system out there. So ID is intellectual disability, and DD is developmental disability or developmental delay. Some people use those two interchangeably. SCO is supports coordination organization. So that's the company that the supports coordinator works for. And an ISP is an individualized support plan. It's kind of similar to an IEP, but focuses more on like day-to-day life. So who qualifies for supports coordination services? In order to be eligible for SC services, the person needs to have a diagnosis of an intellectual disability, autism, developmental delay or disability if they're a child, age 0 to 8, or be a child under 21 with a complex medical condition. The complex medical condition is somewhat new to our system, but regardless of one of these, qualifying diagnoses, the person has to be diagnosed before their 22nd birthday. They also have to be living in Pennsylvania, and it's also recommended that everybody be enrolled in Medicaid insurance. People can, especially children, can be covered under their parents' insurance as well. They can be enrolled in both. And when should someone register? Usually, the earlier the better. Usually around age 14 is when it's recommended, because then the SC can meet with the student and collaborate with, the school district, the family, and anybody else on their team or in their life to try to, work through the transition age, and then out of high school. For example, an individual who's in high school and wants to work, the SC and school district can get employment evals and supports in place to help the person meet their employment goals. We support a young man who did a work study program at a retirement home, and he found that he really, really enjoyed working there. And now he works in a dining hall in a nursing home, and he really, really likes it. The SC monitors how he's doing with his job and will help secure any additional, job-related supports. So how to register for supports coordination? We serve 6 counties. Oh, Delaware should be on there as well. Sorry. But to start the registration process, contact your county intellectual disabilities office and speak with the person responsible for intakes, and who is actually from Montgomery is Dina, who will be presenting later. And the county will collect any necessary paperwork that's needed. And if someone qualifies, they're given a list of all the supports coordination companies, and they can choose one. And then they are assigned a supports coordinator. So we are one of the options to choose from, but there are several options. And people can transfer to a different supports coordination organization at any time if they are unsatisfied with services at a particular SCO. So what do SCs do? Very simply put, supports coordinators ensure that the people that they support are happy, healthy, safe, and have a good quality of life. Although we're not, official advocates, SCs do advocate for the people that they support above all else, applying for Medicaid funding to help connect the person to whatever services they need. These services can include things like skill development, employment, transportation, and life enriching activities, among many other things. Supports coordinators are essentially the connecting bridge between the person and whatever supports they need. They also provide assistance by helping to navigate other service systems. So, relaying resources like SNAP, community groups, social groups, and outside financial assistance companies and things like that. So the supports coordinators, their main roles are to locating services and supports that someone needs. That can include things like job coaching, summer camps, respite, and then natural supports, utilizing people in their community to help with whatever they need in their life, coordinating with the individual team members, including family and staff and service providers based upon what the person needs, and also monitoring. Monitorings are an in-person or virtual visit to ensure their health, safety, and quality of life. And also, if somebody is receiving a Medicaid waiver, the supports coordinator ensures that the services that the person is getting is being rendered as authorized in their ISP, and any issues are documented and followed up upon accordingly. So some other things that SCs do, they lead team meetings. They can attend IEP meetings, but they have to be specifically invited by the teacher or the parent. The SC also coordinates the annual ISP meeting and ensures that the plan stays up to date. As students get closer to graduation, the individual and team determines what services someone may need and advocates for them to get a Medicaid funded waiver. And the SC and the family completes the paperwork and guides them along every step of the way. A person also may be registered for services after they graduate. But again, like I mentioned earlier, the diagnosis, one of the qualifying diagnoses has to be before age 22. So what is an ID waiver? A waiver is a Medicaid program that pays for needed services for people with disabilities. So unlike school, which is entitlement-based, waiver is completely needs-based. There is a waiting list for waiver. So that's why registering, for SC services, early, like I said, around age 14 is ideal. So that the government can plan for how many people, need services or will need services in the future. The waiver is the last resort of funding for services. So all other avenues have to be explored and exhausted before the waiver will pay for something. If somebody does receive a waiver, the SC works with the person and the family to set up necessary services. This is completely individualized and based on what the person needs in their life. And just like people's lives change, services can be added, removed, and changed throughout the person's life. So if someone doesn't have a waiver, the person can, start looking at natural supports like family members, friends, neighbors, local agencies like OVR or United Way. They can also contact their local legislator to advocate for funding for the waiting list. You can also go to the arcpa.gov to get more information about your local legislators. And even if you don't have a Medicaid waiver, you can still receive supports coordination services. That the SC can still do, in-home visits, and they can still connect the person to community services. There are also other waivers available through other service systems, like the Office of Long-Term Living has a Community Health Choices waiver, which is a completely separate service system. But if the person qualifies, they can, explore that system. And still receive supports coordination as well, even if they have another systems waiver. So there's our number for our office, or you can also reach out to me directly if anyone has any questions or thinks of any questions after this meeting is over.
Thank you, Amanda. And I do know there were a few questions in the chat. We're compiling those questions. Amanda, we'll get you those questions too in direct message. Maybe you can be thinking about the answer, but we want to give each of our service agencies a chance to share. So at the end, we'll be able to answer and reflect on those questions. So next we have the Montgomery County Mobile Crisis Team. And here to talk a little bit about the services they provide is Ty Williams.
Hi. Oh.
Hi.
Good morning, everyone. So I am not able to share my screen. So I don't think I'm added as a co-host. So.
Okay. Lois, are you able to help with that? I don't think I can.
Yep, just did that now, Ty. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. All good. Let's see. We'll just. All right. I think we are. All right. We're good to go. All right. So good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Ty Williams. I am the crisis liaison and trainer for Montgomery County Mobile Crisis, which is a program that falls under the umbrella of Access Services, which I will talk a little bit about as we go through our slides here. Want to just kind of start by talking specifically about who Montgomery County Mobile Crisis is, who we are. We are a short-term, 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week crisis support program. We are available 365 days a year. So if there's any time that a person needed to reach out to mobile crisis, they would always get a live person. We are available to all of Montgomery County. Anyone who obviously lives in Montgomery County can take advantages of our services, but you don't necessarily have to live in Montgomery County to reach out to a counselor. You just would need to be physically present in Montgomery County. If you are physically present in Montgomery County, then we will provide support. We support people of all ages and demographics. We spend a lot of times in schools supporting students. What we will do is, if there is a young person who is under the age of 14, we will require that a parent be available to sit with the young person. If not a parent, then a guardian, or obviously at school, a counselor or trusted adult. If the young person is 14 years or older, we still strongly recommend that an adult or parent, guardian be available to participate in the call with them. We're free to everyone. We are a free service, so we'll never charge anyone for contacting us. Our office is based in Plymouth Meeting, And like I mentioned, we fall under the umbrella of Access Services, which houses over 22 various programs. So what do? We support folks in times of crisis. That word crisis, we like to say, is a very broad term. In 2022, we supported people for 81 different reasons, reasons ranging from folks who needed support around transportation to suicide ideation. So if you consider that pendulum, we support everyone. I kind of like to frame it as our associate director, Maura does. She said she'd like to rename our service to a crappy day service program, because that's literally what we feel we are. So there's no, all that being said, there's no reason that you could not contact our crisis program if you felt that you were in crisis or in need of support. We'll always pick up, and we'll always engage around whatever's needed. So we respond to crisis in a few ways. Obviously, we provide resources and referrals. I mentioned earlier that we are a short-term service, so we will provide follow-up for up to 3 times after an initial consult. After that, we would close a file that we might have opened with a person in the community. Doesn't mean that they can't contact us back, but if they do, we will reopen them or open up a new file for them. But we try to be a short-term support, and we hope that our referrals and resources connect individuals with community supports that can pretty much pick up where we left off. We provide consultation. That consultation could include assessments depending on what the specific crisis is. Obviously, we engage initially through the telephone, but we will also be willing to provide in-person crisis counseling as well. And I'll talk about that in a moment. So like I mentioned, there are no specific requirements to contact mobile crisis. If you feel like there's a need for you to contact us, then we will obviously respond regardless of what the need is. So we'll refer, if not in Montgomery County, we will do that. But most of our resources are specifically for the county. So it's why we encourage people who are, what we would do is encourage people who don't live in the county or not in the county often to seek out that county's crisis line as well. I mentioned that we'll also provide support if folks are physically in the county. What that looks like is maybe us having a conversation with them about what they've tried thus far. We'll connect and communicate with ongoing supports, both community and natural supports. What we would like for individuals to be prepared to share with us if they feel the need to call is, one, what support they're looking for, what would be helpful for them, specifically, namely or specifically to the crisis that they find themselves in. Obviously, we're going to do the background information of figuring out what behaviors or what situations led to the crisis. We'll want to know if there were any previous intervention attempts, so what they were, any type of supports that were received by the individual around those attempts. If there are medications, any current services that the individual's receiving, we want to know that. Obviously, family situation or the family dynamic is something that we'll be interested in. Specifically with regard to students, we want to know a little bit more about what's happening at school. Like, what are some of the circumstances and situations that could be leading up, that could be causing the crisis? Are there going to be situations that will impact the student's ability to mitigate the crisis in the future? We talk through that and obviously try to provide some support around some coping skills, self-care, and the like. We ask any other questions that are specific to what is going on in the moment. If there's a need for de-escalation, we provide that. And also, if possible, try to involve other supports to help us as we go through de-escalation techniques and so forth. Someone calls mobile crisis, like I mentioned, we'll get some background information, also demographics. We'll, assess for risk and safety, and then we'll determine a response. There are times when people may call our crisis program, and we don't necessarily feel that there's a need for us to send crisis counselors out. We, might refer them to our peer support or team talk line, which I'll touch a little bit on towards the end of my presentation here. But if we do have to provide a mobile response, what we typically do is send out 2 crisis workers. Those crisis workers will help the individual develop some insight. Like I mentioned, there'd be some de-escalation if that's necessary. We'll provide an assessment, and we'll identify some good community supports that could be helpful to the individual for ongoing support and care. So we're a person-centered and trauma-informed agency. So that being said, what we're always hoping to do is help the individual develop insight around their own crisis. We think from the perspective of what happened to you versus what's wrong with you. And as being person-centered practitioners, our goal is to help empower the individual to make choices for themselves about how to engage their crisis. We do provide support. We do encourage specific community supports and so forth, but we like for the individuals to have some say in that, and to be the ones to really take the lead with regard to their support and future recovery. So that being said, some things that we look for is connection to emotions, senses, and impact. We try to identify motivators for change. We help the individual reflect and connect with some of the themes that could have contributed to the crisis. We confront shame, and we are very, very big on safety planning. So our hope or goal is to create a safety plan for each individual at the end of every intervention that we provide. So specifically for schools, we try to provide a summary of supports, and we do that for a number of reasons. One, there are times when the support for mobile crisis, it leaks outside of school. So we might start an intervention with a young person while they're at school, but the follow-up might take place at home, where we're talking to parents and deciding with parents and the young person about what supports might be needed. So that conversation oftentimes doesn't naturally get communicated to the guidance counselor or whomever is providing support from the school. So what we try to do is provide a summary letter to school personnel, letting them know what our intervention was with the young person. So that would include also some recommendations, the recommendations that we provided to the family to help the young person move forward. So obviously, we go through the process of getting releases signed if that's necessary as well. All right. So that's a basic overview of the mobile crisis program. Some other ways that we support, I mentioned a little while ago that we might make a referral to the peer support or team talk line program, which are programs that are also housed under the Access Services umbrella. The team talk line specifically is a line for young people to either call or text. It's available Monday through Friday. It's available every day, actually, from 1 to 9 p.m. And I believe Charlene will talk a little bit more about that in the presentation. We also have a Hope for Tomorrow mental health conversation program. This is an assembly that we facilitate with students to talk specifically about the importance of taking care of their mental health. So we talk a lot about stress and traumas and how that impacts how we feel about ourselves. And we provide live polls with young people to help destigmatize mental health and suicide ideation. We as an organization are also equipped to provide QPR trainings. We've got over 12 QPR trainers at Access Services in Montgomery County Mobile Crisis who are prepared to provide trainings to community members and also schools if that is requested or needed or wanted. QPR, for those of us who don't know, is a suicide prevention training. It takes up to 2 hours, can be done in about an hour and 15 minutes. And we talk specifically about steps that you would take to persuade someone to make a choice to stay alive if they're having thoughts of suicide. We also have trained in certified mental health first aid practitioners. And we also have trained practitioners as well. So those trainings are all available through Access Services and Mobile Crisis as well. So here's some additional resources. So as you can see in the middle, there's our Mobile Crisis contact information. That number is there. It's 855-634-4673. Our adult text and call line information is there, and that is available from 1 to 9 every day. The number there is there for individual to call, and also our text line is there, folks, as well. Team Talk line information is there, as you can see on the left-hand side as well. And then national resources, as most of you know, the 988 National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is an excellent resource for individuals who might be struggling with suicide ideation. And then there's the crisis line. All right, so that is just a brief overview of Mobile Crisis Program. Be available to answer the questions at the end.
Yeah, very good. Right on time. And there were a few questions that came in, and we will get them to you in direct message, and then we can answer them at the end. So now I will move us on with Family Works. We have Claire here today to present, Claire Higgins and Lori Warren. So I don't know if you guys have co-host capabilities or if you don't have anything to present, but.
No, we do. Just give me a second.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for your patience. We had another person slotted to present and she had a family emergency. So just bear with me. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep, it's coming on now.
Okay, I just have to figure out how to get to slideshow. Well, I can't, the chat is covering my options at the top, so I'm just going to present like this. Hi, everybody. It's nice to meet you. My name is Claire Higgins, and I'm here presenting with Lori Warren, who's our senior family peer support partner at Family Works. Family Works is under the umbrella of HopeWorks. HopeWorks is a nonprofit organization located in Montgomery County, and it is an entirely peer-led organization. It has been in existence since the early 1990s, and everyone who works at HopeWorks, we have a number of we have 7 different programs that we run out of HopeWorks. All of them are provided free of charge to families. And everyone who works for HopeWorks either identifies as having their own lived experience within the mental health system, or as someone who's the parent or guardian of a child who's been navigating the child serving systems. So today we're here specifically to talk about our family peer support program. And for those of you who don't know, what is family peer support? So the qualifiers for having family peer support is that you are currently raising a child or have raised a child or children who have emotional, behavioral health, or mental health challenges. That also includes developmental disabilities and intellectual disabilities. And we also need to have experience with the consciousness and raise the struggle that can be for parents to navigate those systems, and recognize the standpoint of the parents in that journey, and extensive knowledge of the children's serving systems, which includes things like education, juvenile justice, behavioral health, Office of Children and Youth, any system that a child might be involved in. We have knowledge of those systems. And one of the biggest things that we do as family peer support is that we have the ability to strategically share our stories to give others hope and inspiration. So a lot of the clinical services, it's not within their protocols really to be able to share their personal stories. A lot of people who are in this, in this world have their own stories, and that's the reason that they may have joined Health and Human Services or some of these serving fields, but they don't really have the ability to share that so much in a clinical setting. So that is part of what we do, is we share our stories, and with permission, share the stories of other parents as parents who've been there to help get through these things. And also just a willingness to withhold judgment and really serve diverse cultures and backgrounds with respect. So regardless of our child's journey and how that went and who served us well and who didn't, we're really in it to support each family in their own journey and not to pass judgment on any of the services that they're receiving, or it's really just such a collaborative effort. So if you're looking for somebody to come in and help you and, bang on the table and scream, that's not what we're about. We're about collaborative sharing with families and also with other people who the families are dealing with. So just to give you a little bit of the background about why family peer support is so important. And in Montgomery County, we are so lucky because the county, our contract is funded through the county, and they have consistently supported family peer support. So when I first started in 2016, there was 1.5 full-time family peers in the program. And now we are up to 6 full-time family peers, along with our program supervisor and the program director, all of whom have that lived experience. And statistics really show that parents who have that lived experience are reliable and trustworthy sources of information. We all respect that parents are the experts in their own children, and there are experts by experience as well as experts by education, and both of them have equal standing and are both as important. And families who receive family peer support have higher rates of satisfaction with the other services that they're working with. So we are funded, we're program funded. So we're not ME billable. People do not have to have a particular insurance or diagnosis to work with us. We run the gamut. So we help families of children who are very, very young and are just beginning in the system, all the way up to children who are transition age and may have multiple system involvement and have a lot of challenges. And studies also show that if families have someone walking through it who's also been in their shoes, there is a higher rate of compliance. I don't really like that word, but they're more engaged in the other services than if they don't have that support. And just speaking for myself, going through this journey, and the reason I'm doing this work is because I have 8 children. My youngest 2 were adopted from Russia, and they came with a lot of trauma and a lot of differences that I was not used to. So all along I thought, gosh, I'm doing such a great job as a parent. I have these 6 great kids. I've adopted these 2, and I was thrown into a world where I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea what I was doing. And I faced a lot of judgment from other people who didn't understand why I couldn't make it work. And so I think connecting with other people who get it really helps sort of present that buffer when you're faced with that judgment, and just having that extra set of ears to sort of be with you and talk to you and hear and walk through it with you can really help you stay engaged with some of the services that might be frustrating for you. Also, just in terms of things like working with the Office of Children and Youth, family peer support also results in more children being successfully reunited with their families. We can support. So if there is something where there has been a report made to children and youth, we can go to the family's house and be with them during those visits. We can help them know what to expect. We can go to court with them. It's just really another set of ears and hands to be with you during that. Just a little bit of information about us. This is a snapshot of our team. We do have some new team members since this picture was taken, but each of us is here because we have navigated those systems with our own children. And without fail every time we interview someone for this job and ask them what has interested them in doing this work. It's because they say, I don't want another parent to have to go through what I went through, and I want them to have support doing that. So we have families who have children with autism. We have grandparents raising grandchildren. We have parents who've adopted from the foster care system, who've adopted internationally, parents who have had children with juvenile justice involvement. Without a doubt, every single one of them has had educational involvement as well. So it's really runs the whole gamut. And even if we don't necessarily share your exact same story, we really are really good at finding common ground and finding ways that we can continue to connect. Our services are funded through the county, like I said, so they are provided free of charge to any Montgomery County family who is interested. And all of the support that we give is parent and youth driven and guided. So we have a phrase that we say, nothing about us without us. So typically we don't communicate, wouldn't typically go to a meeting without you, or call a provider without you knowing about it or being present for it. One of our main goals is to know that, nothing will be a surprise with us. So as parents who've been there, we know sometimes you walk into a meeting and you feel like there's been a pre-meeting that's happened without you ahead of time, and everybody else knows what's going on and you don't. That's not how we operate. We operate with you and in conjunction with you and in collaboration with other providers. Oh, there we go. So just briefly, our vision and our values, and this is really our hope for all of the systems. We envision family serving systems that recognize and value the importance of family voice and choice, and where every interaction with a family is based on relationship and mutual respect. And that really goes both ways. So we work very hard to help families be respectful and understand the position of some of the professionals in the room and some of the limitations that might exist around some of those services, and then also help families to feel empowered and help them feel like their voice is equally as important. And our values all are centered around trauma-informed care principles and the Pennsylvania CASP principles, which include empowerment and self-determination, partnerships, the shared lived experience, and collaboration and informed consent. So again, that all goes to the theory of nothing about us without us. And the services that we do provide direct support services. So that would be working directly with the parents or caregivers. We don't work directly with the children typically, although we might meet them or get to know them. But we do things like we can help them review their IEPs. We can explain to them what services they're eligible for. We can help them prep before a meeting. We can attend the meeting with them, and then we also can help to debrief after the meeting. So a lot of times that can be really helpful for families who have a lot to say and want to be able to say it, but might not have the ability to do that within the constraints of a particular meeting. And we also have a mutual aid support group, which Lori will talk about in a minute. And then we just recently completed a pilot program with our friends at Access Services, where families who had been surveyed by our survey team identified that during a crisis, they felt like the children were very well supported, but it would have been helpful for them to have some support as well. So we work very closely. We have a dedicated phone line that's only for mobile crisis. And if mobile crisis is serving a family and has de-escalated the crisis to the point where it's safe, they can refer families directly to us, and we have the ability to talk to those parents either during the crisis or shortly after, to support them in a way that is meaningful for them. So we also do a lot of advocacy work. We are heavily involved in family peer work and representing family voice at the state level. And we do some work with legislators. I saw a question in the chat earlier about the mental health consent law. So we've done a lot of work around that. Also around improving the systems in terms of like higher levels of care, like inpatient and residential facilities. We also do a lot of education, and that education can be provided to families. It can be provided to providers in the community. And then a lot of what we do is give tips and pointers and presentations from the family perspective. So, for example, if you have a child who might be struggling and may have to go to like an inpatient level of care, we can help families understand what that looks like. Like, tell them what to expect, tell them what to expect during the intake process, what they can and can't bring to the hospital, those kinds of things. Because within the mental health world, things are a lot different than they are in the medical health world. And then again, our main goal is for empowerment. We really want families to learn to be their own best advocates. We want them to have a way to connect with one another so that they can share their own stories strategically, create opportunities for their voices to be heard because our voices are stronger together, and really to reduce that stigma around having a child who has a behavioral health diagnosis. Or even just a behavioral health concern, and really help them to feel empowered to speak about that and share with others. So I will let Lori jump on and talk about our support group.
Claire's a really hard act to follow, so she's extremely thorough and just creates an amazing portrait of what we do day to day. One of the things that came out of the pandemic was the need to feel not isolated and connected with other parents when we couldn't interact face to face. And just like we're doing now, we found that it is beneficial. It's a time saver. We can connect more people by doing it virtually than having it, in person. We are looking to expand our support group to an in-person option as well. Right now, I facilitate with another person on my team twice a month on Thursdays from 7 to 8 p.m. We have a great group of parents and caregivers and grandparents and aunts and uncles and everyone. Like Claire said, it's from you might be just entering the system, or you are a parent of, like myself, of a young adult who is launching, and you are wanting to connect and what we find is that at the end of every meeting, that just that common thread that is woven between everyone in terms of supporting and uplifting and not feeling alone in your journey is most important. And so that we do that with our support group. And just wanted to add that I always say I'm the underachiever on the team. I have one child, but my supervisor has 9, Claire has 8. But I feel like whether you have one child or you have 9, each challenge is individual and unique, and we help you meet you where you are, and not really serve as a guide, but serve as just an ally to walk you through whatever challenges you might be facing, whether and your child's involved. And a lot of times you have your own struggles through that. So I'm also a certified peer support specialist with my own lived experience with mental health, and a lot of times I connect with parents in that aspect, as well as what it's like to be raising a child with your own challenges when your child has those challenges. So thanks for having us today.
Thank you both for sharing. Another great resource. And so now we will move on. We have the Montgomery County Office of Mental Health, and Charlene is here to share a little bit about what their group offers. So Charlene, I will let you present from here.
Hold on 1 second. I'm going to share my screen and I am not able to get that bar, Claire. It's in the way.
It's blocking it, but we can see.
Oh,
If
okay.
yeah.
All right, there we go. All right, and you're seeing the presentation mode, not my notes. Okay, perfect. So,
Yes.
like I said, thank you for having me. My name is Charlene Artilio. I work for the Department of Health and Human Services in the Office of Mental Health. I'll be talking to you today about mental health supports for children and adolescents. I'm going to give the Cliff Notes version for information. Sometimes it really can take up to 2 hours to talk thoroughly and comprehensively about everything that's available. But that being said, my contact information is at the end of the presentation, so please reach out with questions, concerns, any conversation points that you want to have. I also want to set the landscape a little bit for you in terms of just acknowledging some of the challenges that the mental health system is facing currently. So there's 4 areas I'll touch on. I want to start off with an overview of our office. We'll talk about Pennsylvania Youth Survey data, some current challenges within the system, and then finishing with the resources that are available to you. So just to give a general overview, the Office of Mental Health is one of several offices that sits in Montgomery County's Department of Health and Human Services. So our office is administrative in nature and infuses the tenets of supporting families and youth in a trauma-informed, strength-based manner, always supporting connections, so least restrictive level support. Youth and family is a priority when we think about how to support the community, with equal importance of ensuring the whole person is considered. Our office closely partners with offices of managed care solutions and offices of drug and alcohol, and also Magellan Behavioral Health, which is the behavioral health managed care company, to offer programming that supports children and adolescents, their families, to enhance mental wellness through a continuum of preventative supports through treatment services. All right, so again, before diving into the supports, there's data that will really just be helpful in centering the conversation in terms of understanding what the needs of youth are right now. To have this discussion, I'll refer you to the Pennsylvania Youth Survey that's called the PAYS. It's administered through the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency, the PCCD, in odd years to youth in grades 6, 8, 10, and 12. The survey gives a really nice pulse on student wellness connected to mental health, drugs and alcohol, protective and risk factors. And the 2021 survey kind of confirmed what we assumed, in that there's an increase in mental health concerns. And Montgomery County, along with the state and many counties, saw an increase in youth endorsing statements connected to depression and suicidality. So our office, it's a lot of data to look at. The county reports are public information. We created an infographic that kind of succinctly summarizes the main data points, and also includes some resources that are available in the county. So you'll find a link to the infographic. It's in the PowerPoint. And then I'm also just going to run through with you some of the actual slides of data. And I just want to acknowledge data is really heavy to look at. I mean, when you think about our youth and you think about kind of some of the things that they're endorsing and they're struggling with, so just give yourself the space as we're talking through it, and just acknowledging it's not easy. The survey, the 2021 survey in Montgomery County, there were almost 23,800 students included, and there was participation from 20 school districts. And again, it's public information, so if you head over the PCCD website, you'll be able to see that. Essentially, the slides, there's 3 slides I'm going to cover with you. The red through green is all the Montgomery County data. The blue is the state 2021 data. So what you'll see across grade levels, and this is specific to the question of have you felt depressed or sad? Most days, even if you feel okay, sometimes in the past 12 months, you'll see that there is a significant increase in youth reporting. They felt this. 30.4% of all the surveyed youth endorsed that statement. So that's 9,100. Yes, I feel this way. Another survey question, the youth were asked about whether or not they had considered suicide. Again, data shows an increase across all grade levels. And just more specifically, I want to point out the 6th grade at 13.3%. This is the one data point, 6th grade specifically, where Montgomery County was higher than the state. But again, across all surveyed students, 17.7% reported seriously considering suicide. And that translates to about 4,200 youth. Then the last data slide specifically that I want to share is youth were asked to report the actual attempts of suicide, which is an important question because this kind of includes attempts that adults in their lives might not know about, right? So this is kids reporting. And again, there was a significant increase, sixth grade particularly, is higher than the state. So again, I'm just pausing, acknowledge it's heavy information to digest when we think about our young people and what we're navigating. And then I just want to also, before we roll into the resources, acknowledge some of the systemic challenges that you're looking for services you might be kind of facing as you're navigating the system. So we're talking about needs connected to mental health. It's important to recognize pre-pandemic, there were already barriers to access that have been exacerbated in the last few years. Limited staffing has impacted access with longer wait lists across levels of care. Mobile crisis, Ty shared about that amazing resource. It's so important. It's such an incredibly important resource that really kind of secures that diversion mentality and planning. But there's not crisis system parity. So what that means is that commercial insurance doesn't pay for the service. So the county subsidizes the payment, and that's a county funded service for people who have commercial insurance. Now what that means, right, is that those funds aren't able to be directed in other areas where it could be utilized. The other thing that's important to note is that there's not been an increase to mental health based funding since 2008. So cost of living, kind of things increase, and where we are is that's led to a 40% loss in purchasing power. So when we're thinking about the funding that's available through the county, we really have to kind of be mindful and creative of just larger systemic impact. So I've acknowledged, some of the data that's sensitive, the system challenges, but what I really want to focus on is just kind of resources to get you connected within your communities. So the first no cost service that is available through county funding is the Student Assistance Program. It's also known as SAP. The process in and of itself, it's state mandated for schools, and it offers just a non-punitive option for student needs to be addressed through a core team process. So referrals can be made, team can kind of discuss what observations are happening like during the school day, connect the parent in that conversation, and then from there, decide what resources might be available within the school building. Through the offices of mental health and drug and alcohol, there are county funded services. And then on a case by case basis, like I said, teams might decide, hey, we want to refer this family and student to receive support from our county funded provider, who I'll name in a second. One of the triage supports that we offer, so there's a few different things that are kind of rolled up. Before I talk about what the services in and of themselves are under SAP, I just want to acknowledge they're not meant to replace counseling or therapy. It really is kind of like a bridge into just kind of getting support or connected with other services within the system that might be helpful. Students may be referred for a screening that determines risk related to depression, anxiety, suicidality, substance use, and trauma. Our SAP staff use a tool called, our SAP providers use a tool called the BH Works. It was actually originally developed with CHOP and used in doctors' offices. But what it does is it just kind of gives a snapshot of what the risk levels are. And then from there and through conversation, the SAP liaison would be able to provide resources and help address kind of the areas of need that are prioritized in that discussion and through that screening. From there, or it's not necessarily mutually exclusive where everybody needs to get screening before they tap into these other resources. But there are other short-term individual support sessions. So like a SAP liaison can meet with a student for up to 3 hours during the school year, or there's psychoeducational groups available that offer topics like grief, healthy coping, changing families, just transition right between like from elementary to middle school. So some of these things are just too important to acknowledge developmentally at those age levels. And then the last thing that the SAP liaisons are able to support, so they can attend those core team meetings that I referenced, but they're also able to provide consultation to families and teachers for any students who are connected with their services. Parent permission is required for inclusion in services. So if a child's referred, you would get a permission slip from the agency who's providing that service, not the school district. There's 4 providers and they're regionally located. So Aldersgate, Carson Valley, Creative Health, and Merrickey. And then you'll see on the listing of who is working with each district. and they're all offering the same level of county funded support. Also regionally located are 6 touch points in the county called Community Behavioral Health Centers, CBHCs. The CBHCs provide a continuum of mental health services, except medical assistance. Most notably, they all provide county funded administrative case management, also known as ACM. So if you need help navigating the mental health system, an ACM can provide some direction and help determine next steps and resources specific, really knowing what's available in their area. All of the CBHCs also offer kind of the next step up from administrative case management is blended case management, BCM. And BCM is available for those who have medical assistance and just need a little bit more intensive regular support. Just linking to resources in the community. That might look like exploring benefits or like different entitlements, treatment options, special education, opportunities for social connection, right? So they kind of really, again, are looking at whole person and trying to make those connections and be a point for the family, because finding all that information can be really overwhelming. And then there's kind of just an idea of where they are all located. It's really also important to note that in the state of Pennsylvania, children who are diagnosed with developmental disabilities, whether it's emotional or behavioral disabilities, medical conditions, are eligible to apply for medical assistance through the state. With medical assistance in this scenario, household income is not a factor in the determination of benefits. It's just based purely on the diagnosis. With medical assistance as an insurance, there's a wider variety of behavioral health services that are available that can offer more intensive support in the child and family's home and community. The applications are managed through the state. It's indicated in the top right box. You'll see that information. The good news is I think sometimes those processes can feel a little bit overwhelming, especially depending on where people are with just kind of being overwhelmed with the current situation of navigating the mental health system. So those CBHC, the Community Behavioral Health Centers administrative case managers that I mentioned, they're a resource for you. So if you need help applying for medical assistance or just kind of want to talk through what that looks like, give them a call. Here you'll find the continuum of support services that can vary from least restrictive, being outpatient therapy, stepping up to in-home services like intensive behavioral health services, IBH, also known as wraparound, family-based multi-systemic therapy, and then the more intensive services like residential treatment or acute inpatient. For the sake of time, again, I'm not going to necessarily go through the intricacies of each of these levels of care. There is that guide on the bottom of this slide that you can click. And then I mentioned that with medical assistance, it covers a larger array of therapies. So more specifically, what you would be able to tap into is that kind of those center ones, IBHS, family-based multi-systemic therapy that aren't covered by commercial insurances. Those programs, those higher levels of care are based on medical necessity, and they offer more frequent and intensive support than weekly outpatient sessions. Again, if you ever need to talk through any of these levels of care, please don't hesitate to be connected.
And everyone's presentation will be available at the end of this too, just because for sake of time, I think we're running up on it right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
Perfect. So
and
I will.
also questions, like we're compiling the questions and we'll get the questions answered and out to everybody after too.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay,
And so
you.
now we have Monco Works with Dan here to share about everything that Monco Works offers to families and students in our community.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Great presentation so far. I'm going to share my screen here. All right. So can everyone see that? Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Monco Works now. We're the youth and young adult provider for WIOA. WIOA is the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. I'll get in that in a little bit, touch on that, what that is. This is our team. We have 4 career advisors, a developer of workforce partnerships, myself, and an administrative assistant, Megan, as part of the team guiding our young people, onto their different career pathways, through their lives. So get into everything, what we do and how we do it shortly here. So WIO is a federal program. There's one of us in every single county in the United States. It's the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. So it covers your Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV. So, just for reference, Title III is your OBR services. Title II is your your GED services. For Title I, there's youth and adult. Title I for adult is your career links, and then for youth, it's your youth programs that are similar to a career link with helping people get connected to a career path. So that's who we're funded by. That's who we are. And I'll get into eligibility. So we are an eligibility based program. There's two buckets that we have. Out of school youth, so meaning that no one that is you cannot be in high school, cannot be in college, and not enrolled in any type of credit bearing program. And then 75% of all of our young people that we work with have to be out of school. So that's just part of the federal grant. As we go through, I want to kind of preface that because as we go through, you might be thinking, hey, this is great from a high school student. And yes, we may be able to service him or her, but just keep in mind that we can only have 25% of our total clientele that are in school, so in high school or in college. So as I mentioned, out of school youth who is eligible, so they cannot be attending any school. They have to be between the ages of 16 and 24 in a GED program or with a Job Corps or Youth Build. So that's kind of the first layer that they have to hit, one of those, two of those. And then the third one is one of the the pieces that you see listed. Primarily we enroll young people that had an IEP in high school, maybe have some type of physical disability, mental health disability, dropped out of school, pregnant or pairing, adjudicated youth, and then low income, requiring any type of food assistance or governmental assistance. Those are kind of the triggers that we get for eligibility for our out of school youth. And then obviously documentation all following with that. In addition, all of our young people have to be residents of Montgomery County. If you're on the call and you know of someone that maybe, or you are in a different county, I could point you in the direction to us in a different county as well. So for in-school youth, they have to be in any school program, and they do have to be a low-income individual. I say that it's a low-income individual, but if they do have an IEP in high school, then we look at their income like a person of one. So just an example, if your household income is $100,000 and your young person doesn't work and they do have an IEP, we would look at their income. So they will qualify as a low income person if they had an IEP, unless your student is a really hard worker and working many hours on weekends and goes above that kind of income line. And then the same kind of eligibility triggers for our in-school youth, an IEP, pregnant or pairing, homeless or runaway, English language learner, basic skill deficient, adjudicated offender. So, those are the two buckets to be eligible. And then between 14 and 21 as well is the main piece for ISY. So, we work with young people in Montgomery County. 75% have to be out of school. 25% could be in school. If we're working with 100 young people, 75 have to be out of school youth. So we do a lot of recruiting with the high schools and working with seniors without a plan and enrolling them right after graduation. We work a lot with the GED programs in the area. We like to co-enroll radar funds with them, to co-enroll them as they go. So we do a lot to help our young people in the county. We have, like I said, we have a great team. And this is just really an overview of what we do. So, we help them explore career interests, connect them to work, help connect them back into education wherever they're at. And really the best way to kind of like visualize this is, we help them with wherever and whatever they need at that time in their life. So we work with high school dropouts, but we help connect them to GED, support them through that process, and then help connect them to work. If they're a college grad, where they're kind of just not really sure what they want to do post-college, we help connect them to different paid internships, job shadowing type of activities, sharpen up their resumes, and then help them get work. So it's really a wide gamut of what we do. And there is like a level of independence to our work that we do with young people. You know, when they go to work, you know, we're not job coaches, we're not going to be there with them. That being said, we do work with OVR. We can co-enroll OVR and Monco Works Now so that, you know, we can help connect them to that source, that job. And then OVR can step in and be that job coach to help them along their way and be successful. So we do whatever we can to help them along their career pathway, wherever they're at, you know, within their lives. So career interests, you know, we do different tours. We do a quarterly tour with our young people of different industries in the area. Job shadowing is a big thing. We have virtual job shadowing and live job shadowing. We have a continuum with that. We help them map out their career goals and what they want to do, different assessments as they go along the way, just to really clarify different things. And we're a big believer in work-based learning experiences, you know, getting as much information as possible for our young people so they can make an informed decision, you know, what they want to do. And when they decide, we kind of put some things in place, helps put some things in place to help them make that decision along their way. So we do have some program assessments. We do the career scope, Myers-Briggs, which is the super strong on there. The TABE to really assess if they're at a learning deficit, and that, you know, we need to put additional supports in place when they are out in school. And the key training work keys is kind of our entrance to different levels of funding that we have for scholarships for non-credential based programs, and that's taken at the community college. And I'll get into what those scholarships look like in a little bit. How, you know, these young people market themselves. You know, I'm sure many of you know on the call, you know, it's what you know, but it's also who you know. So we help connect them with different people in the industry that they're interested in. We help build out the resume. We do mock job interviews. We bring guest speakers in to talk to them about, you know, how to be successful in the workplace, reference pages, again, all the different things that follow-up thank you letter, all the different things that, you know, a young person that recently graduated from high school, maybe not the most support in their lives, or, you know, maybe just wherever they're at, just being that extra support person to help them kind of navigate these different things. Clearances, you know, that's like a big piece of helping them navigate those things, getting the physical, where to go, all those different things that are involved with that, you know, as adults, if you know, maybe had to learn on your own, or you had someone guiding you along the way, it's just important that they're connected to us. We try to stay connected with them. That's why we really try to work with our high schools, you know, with those graduating seniors that don't have a plan, so that we're kind of supporting those people along the way, that when they graduate, they have that almost like a school counselor post-graduation to help them, you know, into their next step. We want to keep them to stay connected with a program like ours, so that they can, you know, be on a path to success. Preparing for the workforce, you know, as I mentioned, is a big thing of what we do. As I mentioned, the job shadow, industry tour, job shadow, internship continuum. We do provide paid work experiences for our young people in their area of interest. We have partnerships with over 100 businesses in Montgomery County. You might be thinking, why would a business take on a young person with little to no experience and maybe not a skill set? Well, the big thing, what we do is we pay for them for their hourly wage to be with us. So, you know, we have a young person working at Serve Pro right now. You know, he's doing a great job over there. He's mechanically inclined. But Serve Pro right now is getting almost a free employee to work for them. Our guy is still getting paid. He's getting paid $17 an hour. But you know, Serve Pro is essentially try him out, train him, and at the end of his internship, which can be up to 800 hours, you know, a lot of times they'll just hire our young people directly. And to us, that's a win. And that's a big deal, because, you know, they may not have had that opportunity for that drive. It's beneficial to the business as well, because they get the help that they need. They get to train someone their way, And they have a support person for them on the back end. So again, if there's any problems that come up during the internship, we problem solve it with them. We problem solve with the business. We help them learn from their mistakes so they can move forward and they don't have to worry about, getting fired or laid off or if they make a mistake, the business understand that it's a learning experience. Because they work with us because they're getting that extra help on our dime. So just an example there of what we do with that. Connection with employers, creating a career link account. Obviously, the work experience is a big deal. We have a what employers want panel quarterly, which is, we have different employers come in and talk to our young people about what they're looking for on a resume, in a job interview, on the job. Showing up on time and what that looks like to the different business. And it just allows them to get, different experiences and different perspectives from hiring managers, which is something we really enjoy doing, as part of our curriculum. A big piece of it as well is supportive services. So barriers are something we want to remove. We want to remove out of their way to help them be successful. So we help a lot of times in Montgomery County, the public transportation is very poor. So what we help provide for supportive services for transportation. So we'll buy them a septic key card if applicable. And then we also have a partnership with Uber to where we can pay for their transportation up to a certain amount to help them get to work or to get to their work experience. As they go. If they need work clothes, we can scholarship that. If they need to get driver's education, we can pay for that as well. So again, all these things that could be in their way for them being successful, and maybe they had to save up a lot of money to do it, and it would take a lot longer. We help snowplow that out of the way, and we're just kind of fast tracking these young people that need it the most to success. Another piece of what we do is help them meet their educational goals, as I touched on. If they need their GED, we support them in that. A lot of times that's with transportation, checking up on them, making sure they're going to classes. If they need a boost, we provide that with our team. If they're interested in a non-credential based program, we can scholarship that up to $5,000. So a lot of times that's your CDL license. We have young people that, we scholarship them for CDL. They go through the CDL classes, they earn their certification, their license. We exit them, we help them, we don't really need to help them get a job, but they do. And they're making pretty good money pretty quickly with no debt. So another example of what we typically can pay for is any non-credential based program. So anything that's like, if it's a credit attached to it at a college, we can't pay for it. But just an example, like the certified nursing assistant program at the community college is non-credential, so we could pay for that. There's a lot of different dental assisting schools in Montgomery County. We can pay for that. CDL, as I mentioned before, there's some really awesome adult education technical courses at North Monco. That's a big place that we go to as well. So you may not be aware of this as well, but there's a lot of like 9 to 16 month programs in IT in Montgomery County, New Paths, JobWorks. They're just some really great programs that they can earn networking credentials in 9 months, and they'll get hired pretty quickly because those are really in need jobs in the county and in Pennsylvania. So again, those are things that we do, and again, removing barriers to success. They may not, we say to this all the time and talking to recruit, hey, you probably will be successful, without us, but come with us and we will make sure that you're going to be successful along the way. We're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that you are.
That's a great approach, Dan. Thank you.
Yep.
Sorry, we kind of have to keep moving here. I know you do have a presentation that you can also share this presentation with everyone following today.
Yeah, no problem. I think Lois
Yeah.
has it, so she can pop it out to everybody. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. We have one more presenter here today. We have the Montgomery County Department of Developmental Disabilities, and Dina Scarsi is here to share a little bit about what their agency provides. Dina, I'll let you take it away.
Okay, you can see my screen or no? Can you see the
Yes, yes,
presentation?
we can. We can see
All
the
right, thank you.
slides. Yep, you're good.
Thanks. Thank you. So I am Dina Scarsi. I work for Montgomery County's Office of Developmental Disabilities. I'm one of the intake coordinators. So I'm going to kind of skip over some stuff and just kind of jump to some of the questions that or the material that I saw being asked for the ARC Alliance. So we are an eligibility office. So you can register with our office with an intellectual disability, which means that you would have to submit a psychological evaluation documenting the diagnosis of an intellectual disability, as well as a full-scale IQ score of about 70 or below. You would have to show evidence of the onset of the disability prior to the age of 22. And you would also have to show significant limitations in at least 2 areas of life activities. So this is through something known as an adaptive assessment. And those areas are things like communication, socialization, academics, health and safety, and so forth. I forgot to put the other bullet point. It does need to be signed by the psychologist. So it's who completed the report, a neuropsychologist, school psychologist, or so forth. You can also register with a diagnosis of autism. You would have to have medical assistance in order to register. We would also need a psychological evaluation providing a diagnosis of autism based on the results of a standardized diagnostic tool or assessments related to evaluating autism. So you're looking at things known as like an ADAS, a CARS, a GARS, an ASRS. Someone with autism would have to show significant limitations in 3 areas of major life activities through that adaptive assessment. And then they would also have to have a physical completed. And the physical meets the requirement regarding the ICF/ORC level of care. So when you contact our office, and typically you'll speak with me because I usually do most of the initial calls, I will send you an email that will contain this medical evaluation form. You bring it to the physician, they complete it, they check a box that says ICF/ORC. And by checking this box, it means that due to the diagnosis of autism, they may be eligible for services and supports funded under a Medicaid waiver program. So that's what the box means. If they check the wrong box, we have to send it back. So the box matters. Also, the evaluation has to be signed by the psychologist. Next, you can register with a diagnosis of a developmental delay or disability. These are for children that are under the age of 8. So over the age of 8, it would either have to be an intellectual disability diagnosis, an autism diagnosis, or medically complex conditions, which I'll talk about in a second. So for a child under the age of 8, we would be looking for a psychological evaluation that shows the developmental delay diagnosis with a high probability of resulting in an intellectual disability or autism after the age of 8. So you can register with that developmental delay or diagnosis, but after the age of 8, you would have to submit documentation in order to continue to remain registered with us that supports either an intellectual disability diagnosis or an autism diagnosis. These children do need medical assistance. They also have to show the impairments in adaptive functioning skills in 3 areas, and they also need the medical evaluation. Next is the newest category, and that's medically complex conditions. And once again, when you contact the office, I will provide you with forms that need to be completed by a physician that document the chronic health condition that affects 3 or more organ systems. So you're looking at systems like cardiovascular, digestive, endocrine, nervous, or respiratory. So it is a form that I will send to the parent that they can submit to the doctor to complete. They do have to result in skilled nursing services. So this chronic health condition in at least 3 major organ systems has to result in that child or individual receiving skilled nursing services. And you can register under a medically complex condition from birth until 21. They would also have to show significant limitations in at least 3 major life activities through that adaptive assessment. They would also need that physical with that ICF ORC level of care. And they would also need medical assistance in order to register with us. So those are the 4 categories that you could register with the Office of Developmental Disabilities. And kind of based on our conversation, I can usually figure out what the diagnosis is, what I need to send to you. Every once in a while, we may send something out regarding an intellectual disability, and then we get the report and it shows a diagnosis of autism, which is fine. It's just then it kind of shifts on what kind of documentation we need. So once you submit the documentation, depending on the diagnosis, you may get routed to Megan. So my cohort is Megan Disk, and she is the person who helps families who have someone with a diagnosis of autism through the intake process. I do everything else. So I do under 8, medically complex conditions, ID/autism. With that, it's honestly because my name and number has been out there in the universe forever. So I just kind of field the initial calls, and then if Megan will be that person following you, I will let you know that and providing her information to you. So once we determine someone eligible, we have an intake meeting. And during that intake meeting, we review the different types of funding, the services and supports, and the waiting list that's actually called a PUNS. During this meeting, you pick the supports coordination organization that you want to help coordinate the services. That information will be provided to the family prior to the intake meeting. So we will give you a list of the supports coordination organizations that are currently open to Montgomery County, and then you will be asked to select from that list. Once you're registered, the supports coordinator from the organization you chose will contact you. So the main role of the supports coordination organization is essentially to help you navigate our service system. They help you, they help, link individuals and families to whether it's waiver services, community resources, or natural supports within the community. Once someone receives funding, they'll help you locate providers, they coordinate the services, and they monitor those services, which means they kind of have more contact with the family and individual to ensure their health and safety, and to make sure that the services are being used as needed. But once again, their main goal is to help you navigate the system, and they are the gateway to services and support. So without a supports coordinator, you're not registered. The county has no idea that someone's in need of services and supports. The supports coordinator develops an individual support plan. We call it an ISP, and this provides information about the individual that's important to them. It's person-centered and it's planning, and it collects information regarding their personal preferences, dreams, wishes, what makes sense to them, what doesn't make sense to them, what's important to them. And then, of course, the typical medical history, concerns, and things like that as well. Now, the PUNS is what everyone calls the waiting list. And the PUNS stands for the prioritization of urgency and need for services. So you don't get on the PUNS early by registering with us early. It's based on need. So you can identify a need for a service up to 5 years away. So an example would be if an individual is 16 years old and they're going to graduate at the age of 21, they would have a PUNS in what we call the planning category, indicating that they would be in need of services upon their graduation at the age of 21, which falls between 2 and 5 years. Once that individual moves up to the age of 19, they would then move into what we call a critical category, meaning they need services between 6 months and 2 years. And then once they are within 6 months of graduating from school, they move into what's called an emergency category because they need services within 6 months. Now, the categories doesn't guarantee funding, but it's the way the county and state plan for individuals and needs. So you can go on to the PUNS, once again, is used to identify the need for services and supports and how urgent that need is. So if you register with us at the age of 10, it doesn't mean you're going to be higher up on the PUNS, because the PUNS isn't by number, or like you get a ticket and when your number's called, you get funding. It's based on need. So the funding is always determined by who has an immediate health and safety risk. The waivers, so anytime you hear the word waiver, they are talking about funding for services and support. So it's the shortened term for Medicaid, Home and Community-Based Waiver Program. And this program provides services and supports to help individuals live within their home and community. So we actually have 3 waivers. When I say we, it's the Office of Developmental Disabilities. The difference in these waivers are spending limitations. So the first waiver, known as the person family waiver, is capped at $41,000 per fiscal year. The next waiver is the community living waiver, that's capped at $85,000 per fiscal year. And next is consolidated, which is uncapped. So when you are applying for funding, you do not apply to a certain waiver. The county will determine what waiver is needed based on the cost of services that were identified. So if you're requesting services and the budget for those services is under $41,000 and the county has a person family waiver, that waiver may be offered to you in order to support, to help provide those services and supports. If your budget is $300,000, then a consolidated waiver is what would be needed in order to fund those services. Now, you may start out in a person family waiver, and as you progress through life and have an increased need for services and support, you could end up with a community living waiver or a consolidated waiver. Whenever you need funding or additional services and support, you go back onto the PUNs to identify that need. So for example, let's say I have a person family waiver, but I still need additional services and supports. I would go back onto the PUNs in the highest category of need that they could place me in to for the need for, like, say, a community living or consolidated waiver. So it's not as if you're given one opportunity to secure funding and then that's it for the rest of your life. You can always go back to the supports coordinator, indicate what has changed that would warrant the request for another waiver and additional services and supports. These are the different services and supports that can be funded. So something like residential rehabilitation, which is that traditional group home model, that usually takes a consolidated waiver just because the sheer cost of it. But there's home and community services, companion services, supported employment, community participation services, transportation, and so forth. Things like therapies, like OT, PT, or speech, nursing services, behavioral supports, they are 21 and older services. And that's usually because prior to the age of 21, they're funded through insurance, the school district, or medical assistance. To register, this is my direct line. Like I said, everyone typically calls me, and then if Megan will follow up with you, I would let you know that in an email once the documentation is submitted to us to review. And this is just kind of another breakdown in how the process works. So you make the referral, we determine eligibility, you have a meeting if you're eligible. The supports coordinator will contact you guys to develop the ISP. If there is a need for services and supports, the person can be placed on the PUNs if they fit into the categories of need. And then if the county has that funding, you would have the opportunity to select your providers for the different types of services and supports that may be needed. And that's it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Sure.
Wow, lots of robust information and
Yeah.
sharing here from everyone. And I know we went a little bit over, but we wanted to get all of the information out there to everyone. I know questions did come in, but we are looking at the 11:07 mark. So some of our thinking was we took careful note of every question and that we can compile it all into kind of a Q&A of sorts that we will send out. So presenters will probably be reaching out to each of you just to get your feedback on some of those questions that were asked. And we will also be sharing everyone's presentation. Just some looking ahead things that I want to make sure I share before we wrap up. because our local task force is hosting different teamings like this throughout the different months. Looking ahead, on May 9th, we're going to be having a meeting just like this, and we're bringing in different speakers from the IU to talk about inclusion, and we're titling it Inclusion with Purpose. It'll be a focus on topics of universal design for learning, and other areas that focus on that area. It will be 9:30 to 11 o'clock, again in a virtual space. A flyer will be coming out in the near future about that. So save the date, May 9th. I want to thank everyone that was here with us today, especially going a little bit later, our panelists. We appreciate all of you. We're fortunate in this county to have some of the resources that we have, and appreciate all of you coming here to share. Anything else from anyone else before we convene? Okay,
Just
then
wanted to thank everybody too. This was full. I was keeping it in, full of a lot of great information, and I'm very appreciative that you allowed us to record it too, so that we can get that out. Dina, my daughter, you and I sat together years ago. I want to say it was 2012. You're still
Okay.
there.
I
forgot
did
your
leave
name.
for a few years, but I'm back.
excellent.
I thought.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
did
go
leave for
ahead,
a few
Anne
years.
Marie.
And I know that we also have like a little feedback form too that we will be sharing with those of you who attended. So look out in your email for lots of different, the presentations, but also just some feedback on how you feel this was today. We might even be able to throw it in the